So, weirdly enough, I'm quite unmotivated to review this episode. I'm gonna have a couple of nitpicks, I'm gonna gush about Atsushi Kobayashi, but it feels everything the episode is doing is pretty clear, and everything it leads to is a setup for the interesting stuff I want to talk about but can't yet, and to some extent won't be able to in this season. The oath sets a pretty decisive direction here, and no doubt people had alarm bells in their heads when that happened. And I can't fully appease everyone because, depending on the person, the alarm bells are correct. I'll get into this in a bit. Now, let's properly admire all those meaty frames. Beautiful, so good. Kobayashi cinema is real. You know, I expected less of the zombie warriors in the adaptation, because they have very intricate designs and textures, really, that they'd be a nightmare to animate with the detail necessary. But they're all here, sure enough. The only panel missing is the regenerating head bubbling underneath the blood here. And I'm sure everyone had this exact lighting in their heads while they read it. Great atmosphere. Let me not skip the beginning, that also had a really striking look that made it feel real dreamlike. I'm definitely going to remember this. This sequence is a little bit different, but I'm glad we kept the really disapproving dad look. Enhanced even, it's more clear here. I love that. Man is built like a mountain here. Jesus, Kobayashi does like his muscles, I've noticed. What's different is this continuation of the episode 6.5 dream with Einar. I don't mind it, I don't think it makes a real difference, and as a result we have Thorfinn turning back to farmland Thorfinn a bit sooner. Personally, I would have kept him prologue Thorfinn as the corpses grabbed him. Feels more correct that it's him specifically. By the way, farmland Thorfinn, the superior design, don't at me, doesn't look like a generic anime protagonist template. Looks like a fucking real... Actually, specifically in this episode, in some shots, he looks like Simon Pegg. Ever since the third trailer, I cannot unsee this. I don't know, maybe it's a me thing that I get so entertained by the concept of Simon Pegg Thorfinn. Huey from the Boys comics, almost. Moving on. This episode somehow felt a bit slow for adapting 64 pages, but I see clearly that it was intentional. They had space to pace it like they wanted to. That is a habit of the adaptation. They want the scenes to sink in properly. I'm personally not of that mindset. I'm more of a don't let me recover from the last hit person. Keep hitting, don't let me fully process. They also utilized the knife here in a clever way that messed really well with the source material. I liked that touch a lot, with a slave panel being reflected on the knife. So the big phrase that comes back this episode is nobody is your enemy. And we juxtapose with Askeladd commenting that in this place, everyone is an enemy. And this ain't Valhalla, this is the real world. Vinland does not like afterlives. Do not get distracted, we're in the land of the living. All your actions, their consequences, they matter here. And specifically, this is the real world that Prologue Thorfinn knows. The warrior. Everyone is out to get him. They laugh at him, they try to strip him down of everything he has. His pride, his honor. He responds with anger at everything, cause everything is a threat, if not physically, then to his values. Askeladd has a special place in hell, up high on the Roman pillars. He was smarter than the others, knew this for what it really was, but still he indulged, so he belongs here too. There are no winners, no losers, no end. This is a way of life, a worldview, the final destination of all warriors. You don't get out of it by winning a battle. Only winning there can be is a change of perspective. It's been good to Askeladd though. Apparently hell can restore your hairline, so go start killing each other. First time I've noticed, but the call to action here is become a true warrior Thorfinn, but without the son of Thors. I appreciate the distinction here. Let's focus on this being Thorfinn's path and not something he does because of his dad. And no claiming it's for his dad either. A part of this that's really cool is Einar here. And with this we'll eventually come back to the alarm bells thing. As a manga reader, I love the guy. And the farmhands have been built up to be very annoying and unquestionably bad people. So when Thorfinn does the punch and Einar kicks their asses, that feels good. Einar is satisfied with this. He's repeating that they won. He finally got that after feeling defeated in the first episode. Meanwhile, a single punch triggered Thorfinn PTSD, or rather, not the punch but the feeling, why he did it. He felt like he was back here. Now, did the farmhands deserve it? Maybe. Thorfinn didn't make a rational decision here though. He knows he himself deserves much more. It came out of anger. He let the old Thorfinn out, the one that doesn't think and doesn't consider the consequences for him and the people around him. Thorfinn's not the smartest, but this he understands. This is the process and the emotion that led him to kill a lot of innocent people. Even if the scale is different, the outburst shorter, to some people justified, the root is still the same. That's why this is such a great setup. It's something so small that you wouldn't blame anyone for it. In fact, you'd congratulate them for it. But it's so clearly wrong, a wrong decision. They could have been severely punished, and they didn't stand to gain anything from it. Einar keeps saying they won, but they've also hit rock bottom at the same time. So what did you win? The feeling of having won something? Winning here is worth as much as winning in that place in Thorfinn's nightmare. It's meaningless. So no, you don't get to be happy at this satisfying turn of events. And that, unfortunately for some, is the path this story is taking. It directly takes away some form of enjoyment for the purpose of the story. You're gonna have to engage with what this is actually about, cause every other form of enjoyment is on the table here, at risk of being left behind. It's going to deny you a lot of catharsis. It's gonna get into situations that are frustrating and challenging. Pride and anger won't be sated. The story is always going to be over your ear, like, no, you're not gonna feel good about this. That feels preachy, you know? It rains on your parade. I see a lot of people trying to argue about not being a pushover or whatever, but they always try to make excuses about Thorfinn here, even the old one, and that he shouldn't feel bad about this. Other people immediately are asking, will he fight again though? Will he get out of this mental pit? People are trying to rush this, they don't want to be here, because at least subconsciously they realize they're going to be denied some of the reward they get from more conventional stories. Also, while they didn't adapt this panel of Peter, it goes super hard. They did keep the Ketil-Peter interaction. Ketil thinks how scary it would be to get isolated from the group, but Peter has principles. Good characterization. With this and episode 10, you can actually see what the visuals in the opening mean. First the hands and climbing, referenced in the dream, and then the scar becoming Swain's eye. That's my favorite one. You also have Canut's red cloak turning into the iconic black one we see in the volume cover. Okay, just watched the 10th episode. I like the adaptation, but this shows me they made a couple really bad decisions. But first, time skip. 3 years, we're in 1018, and now Thorfinn and Canute stories are happening at the same time. They changed Thorfinn's design a little bit, which I appreciated. In the manga it was more of a gradual change, even though there was a time skip. It was more of an art style change. Okay, I put this off until now, because I wanted to see how they'll handle it after the time skip, but I think Thorfinn's voice is the only one that's not doing it for me. I was thinking about this ever since the first season. This voice isn't gonna fit him once he grows up. I still hear teenage Thorfinn, and that's really putting me off. This episode, Yuto Uemura did subtly change the voice a bit, but not as much as I'd hoped. I'll comment on this again if anything changes. So, farming is for the most part over. Just pull the stumps, tilling, planting, and they're free men that don't know what to do with their lives. Einar really has nothing, but Thorfinn, I like this bit. Thorfinn isn't sure what to do even though he does have a family. But that was 16 years ago. That was a different life. I don't blame him for not being sure about this. A life as farmhands here wouldn't be the most unappealing thing. But he's thinking about something. Could they eliminate war and slavery from the world? This has the same energy of a kid realizing bad stuff happens all around the world and wishing for world peace. But there's nothing more said about this here. On another note, it's time for Canute to come face to face with his trauma. By the way, any scene with Canute and Harald as kids is anime original content. I was wrong about Harald again, he did not have red hair in season 1. Anyway, the two kings get along pretty well, until Harald falls ill. Welp, you know what that means. I actually liked the Swain scenes. I expected those to not hit right and to feel overdone, but they're nice and sneaky. They have a good feel. This transition in the manga is undefeated, but overall anime did do pretty good. The quality of the episode was also good. A nice middle point, with attention where it needs it. This episode adapted chapter 72 and part of 73, and not in that order. It felt a bit slow as usual. You know, I did the rough math and no, it still has to go at the same pace. First 9 episodes did not actually compensate for it. But you know, Canute is a rarity here, so it's not a terrible spot to slow down. I've said this before. But they did make quite the misbegotten decision here. I know from the next episode's preview, they're going to switch a setup, payoff, to a setup payoff. They're untangling the timing of plot threads and it's gonna make everything feel much flatter and less exciting. It won't let the setup simmer. This could even be Yukimura having doubts on the order of events he decided on, actually. He's wrong though, it worked better as it ended up on the manga. We'll talk about this more in episode 13. All this stuff reminds me of the Askeladd Bjorn scenes in the end of season 1, but way worse. Wolf popped up here, huh? He does just do that. The most interesting thing about him really comes from historical context, but don't look it up. Also, what the hell is the cursed head? I don't want to make innuendos here, it's the curse of the head, get it right. Canute slowly comes to understand Swain somewhat. He feels like they are alike now. Swain told him about the curse of the head when they met in the first arc. Use power and gain power, that is what you are compelled to do. Canute feared Harald might complicate things, that he eventually could become an enemy maybe. So he snuffs him out now, to gain more power, more control, so he doesn't fail his dream of creating paradise on Earth. Canute also fears poison after how much he himself used it. And here is the second bad decision. Remember me being angry at episode 5 for not including the final line? They're not gonna do anything with it now, so I can talk about it. Swain, Ethelred, Edmund. After the untimely deaths of all his rivals, Canute would officially become King of England in 1018. Earl Edric of Mercia did indeed turn cloak to join Canute's side. And in December 1017, Canute had him put to death. Anime wants to spell everything out for you, apparently it doesn't want to give you crumbs to think on and have a chance to realize things by yourself. You get no setup without it telling you the immediate payoff right after. Cause the implication here after all the poisonings is that Canute looked at Edric, now on his side, thought about how he betrayed his king and managed to poison him, and decided he wants none of that. Edric is a potential threat that must be eliminated, just like Harald. The last scene also has the thing where dark scenes get much brighter, but at least they did utilize darkness in a very cool way with Swain's head. At least they get everything around Swain's head perfectly, alright? Lastly, I get the emotional, kind of upbeat tone they used for the filler flashback in the end, which didn't do much for me, a bit of a generic scene. But that tone also extended to the "so this is it, nothing to it." Odd, I don't know if that is supposed to be a melancholic happy moment, but you do you. So that is it about episodes 9 and 10. See you next time.